Yay!
Episode 5. We're halfway to 10.
I know.
Halfway to double digits.
Can't believe it.
You know, for doing as much content, this feels like a lot of content for us. God really has just kind of like let it
Made
flow.
it happen.
Like, I don't want to jinx it, but like we haven't had to re-record except for technical difficulties, the first two.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no like takes and we start over. Yep. We're just like giving it to you real.
Yep. So either you love it or you hate it.
So bear with us and we'll see where it goes. So today,
what are we talking about?
We are unpacking the final hinge of comparison. What? Yes, we've already done all of the others.
So we did self-comparison. Mm-hmm. We did superiority.
Unfortunately.
We did. And now, what are we talking about today, Miss Lindsay?
We are going to talk about those humble comparisons.
Ooh.
So a humble comparison is when you minimize yourself in order to sympathize with someone you love.
Mm-hmm. And basically invalidating what you've gone through.
Correct.
Which is still valid.
Correct.
Yes.
So the whole mission today is sympathize, not minimize.
Seems like a dance should go with that.
Are
you going to dance for us? Interpretive dance?
I do have really, really sparkly leggings. No, we're not interpretive dancing.
Just saying.
No.
Okay.
I'm not usually. No.
Mm-hmm. Since when are you shy?
No, I'm not shy.
Oh.
No, I'm not shy.
I don't think so.
You need me to
No,
I'm just kidding.
No.
Okay. So, now that we know we're talking about a humble comparison, what is a good example of that? Like, when is a time that we have recognized
I've got
what's a humble comparison?
I got one. I know.
Tell the people what you got, Steph.
All right. So, Lindsay and I were on the phone one night, and we were talking, and we both have endometriosis.
Unfortunately.
And hers is completely debilitating.
Unfortunately.
And mine was very uncomfortable from the time I was younger. And I just kind of, there were bad days, but it wasn't I wouldn't deem it debilitating at all. And she said that she was having a really bad flare-up one day. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry because I know that I don't experience anything like yours. This thing is going to drive me nuts. All right, sorry. I talk with my hands. I'm not Italian, but I talk with my hands.
Well, you should be, because that's what we do.
I know. But I made the comment to you that I didn't think that mine was as bad as yours. Totally.
It was very sweet. It was a very sweet.
Dawn on me.
I knew where her heart was in that moment. I have had 3 surgeries. I was told at 20 I needed a hysterectomy, but I wanted kids so bad that I have literally suffered for 20 years. And there are times when I can't breathe. So like there are times when my endo is bad that like literally my breath is taken. And Steph has seen that, unfortunately.
I've seen her go pale
far too often. And so we were on FaceTime, right?
I think so, yeah.
And she could see it. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm not." Like I could barely breathe through the pain. And then you minimized in an attempt to show me an empathetic mindset.
It may have been a fact that
and so
yours is more severe.
Doesn't matter. But the thing is, and in that moment I appreciated it. Like in that moment I was like, oh, thank you. But something
I got a phobia.
something didn't sit well with me after that. And I'm like, God, why is that not like what's wrong with that? Like she was just showing me compassion. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And it dawned on me, like, you shouldn't have to minimize yourself, minimize what your experiences are in order to make me, like, have a show of sympathy.
Right.
Like, that shouldn't be the case. And so, I called you.
She totally called me out. Remember that conversation we had last week about the calling people out?
I do that.
That's what she does. She is a truth teller. Truth speaker. Yeah. Sorry.
And so I knew you were good. I called and I was like, okay, so don't take this the wrong way, but I think I I appreciate what you did for me in that moment, but I also don't think that it's right. Mm-hmm. And we kind of talked about that.
I wasn't really sure what you meant at first. And you kind of had to spell it out. Like, you had to use small words and string them together so that I could understand, because I just wasn't getting it. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And I think that it's not something that, like, even I realize, I've done that. Like, I'm like, oh, I could never imagine what you're going through. Right. And it's like, but like, I probably could. Right. I probably have my own situations that, like, right. I can empathize with someone. And you know, when we were beginning, so we initially wrote this study as a 30-day study. So it was 4 weeks. And in our beta group testing, it turned into much longer than that, but that's not why we're here. But in one of those beta groups, it was an in-person group, we gave out like our activities in the study, like our homework, or I'm not going to reveal what we called it because I think it might change. But we had them walking through this activity of the labels that they wear and all these things, and we gave them, like, 5 or 10 minutes to kind of like pray and write their own notes and come up with the things, the labels that they wore. And though Steph and I had already done all of these exercises prior to the beta groups, we participated along as they did. And this one's going to be tough for me. Even though I had already done that exercise on my own, I'd prayed through it, we had decided this is something that we should include in the study. I went through it with the beta group, and these labels that were coming up were all ones I knew. Fat, whatever I could tell myself, right? And I wrote something down, and I was like, snap.
Where'd that come from?
That's heavy. That's heavier than I thought. And I wrote, not a real mom. And I don't think I understood the gravity of those words. Really, even until I wrote further about it later on. But in that group, I said, we gave everyone like a space to share, what were the labels that you told you wear, what do you wear? And I said, I didn't know this, but I wrote down not a real mom. And this woman, now she's probably, I don't know, 10, maybe, no, she's probably like 15, 20 years my senior, says, she was shocked. Like, she was like, what? Yeah. Not a real mom? What do you mean by that? And I'm like, I didn't birth my kid. And so, like, I'm not a real mom. And so she's like, okay, number one, I just got to squash that for you because you chose this. Mm-hmm. And most of me and, like, my people when we got pregnant were like, holy crap, what are we going to do? And you chose this. You said, yes, God, sign me up for this. And so you're more of a real mom than anyone because that was a conscious decision that you made. You invested time and money to make that happen. And I was like, okay, yeah. And that gave me like a little bit of confidence. But what I didn't realize was like what I was doing to myself in wearing that label, and how I really was self-deprecating, and I was striving so hard to prove to myself and to everyone else that even though this child did not come from my loins, from the depths of my soul, that I'm just a real mom. He's exactly like me, so it's shocking that he's not from the inside of my body, but he sleeps that close to me most nights, but we co-sleep. No, I don't need your opinion. It's fine. And so that label was that minimization that I did of myself in comparison to all the quote unquote real moms. It was really hard for me. You were around when I processed all that.
Yeah. that was a really deep moment because
I sent you a picture today of myself crying, rereading it.
Well, but the thing is I always have thought of you as a real mom from the day that I walked into church, and all of a sudden there's a kid on your shoulder, and I'm like,
you're like, hold up, what?
And you're like, and I'm like, okay, God is good. We know this.
God is good.
And so it was really hard for me as your friend to hear that you didn't think of yourself as a real mom, because to me, being a mom takes so many forms. There's so many facets of it, but you put your kids at the center, and you go forward, and you do all the mom things, and that's how you're a mom, right?
Yeah.
And you do that. Yeah. And little Mr. Carter and all of his glittery fabulousness, I love that kid. He is basically you. And yes. While he may not have your DNA, that's a technicality, and I think of it too in terms of, step parents. There are people that they don't have to love the children, and they think of them as their own. And, when your kid gets older and you got their friends over all the time, and, it's like your mom, you said everybody always gathered at your house, and your mom was just the mom.
All my friends call me mom.
My mom was just the mom to all the band brats and geeks that I hung out with, and I think that when you take those steps and you show that you care, okay, I get why you did it, why you thought that way, but to me it blew me away.
Yeah. Because
I saw you as a mom.
Yeah.
And I didn't qualify it with
and anyone
mom.
would, right? I mean, anyone. You see me in a grocery store with my kid throwing a temper tantrum on the floor, and I'm sitting there with him, like, I'm the mom. Yep. But there's this real easy place that the enemy can come in and use your the things that you're most insecure about, and just as a breeding ground and let it run wild.
Well, for years, decades.
Yeah.
Right? You battled with infertility.
Yes.
And I would be really shocked if that wasn't part of who you thought you were.
Yes.
If it hadn't become some twisted piece of your identity.
Well, so I had spent 10 years, miscarriages, failed adoptions, adoption meetings where they're like, the average is $50,000. And I'm like, we don't have that. All these things where, I just was sure that, well, I'll just be a dog mom and the cool aunt. And I am. I mean, well, I was a dog mom. They're gone. But because they were very, very, very old and very sick. But, I am a cool aunt. And I'm still those things. And, when my household is slightly less crazy, I'll be a dog mom again. But, I don't have a birth story. I don't have what I craved when I was pregnant. I don't have physical changes to my body accommodating a pregnancy to term. I don't have those things, but I'm absolutely a real mom in every sense of the word. Absolutely. I'm the one that kisses the boo-boos. I'm the one that's up all night. I'm the one doing these things. So I'm absolutely a real mom in every sense of the word. And so when I realized, wow, how could I ever say that about myself? I was shocked. And there's a lot more in the study on the topic and how just incredible God is with the miracle of my boy. Yes. But basically Steph's right. It was 10 years of infertility struggles, and I was walking through a surrogacy with someone who we thought we were both very confident that's what was God's plan for us. And our only hard out was if they fertilized all the eggs, and there's the potential that they would be discarded. And so we met both couples and talked, and in that meeting I said, why can't God just drop a baby at my door, because I would love him.
And he did.
And then that week I made a phone call to the infertility doctor to say, before I schedule this 4-person appointment, I need to know these details. And I was shattered when I learned that we weren't going to be moving forward because they would discard fertilized eggs. And that was a Thursday. And I think maybe even I already said this to people, but that was a Thursday. And that Sunday I found out about my son. A week later I met him. the next day, a friend gave us $12,000. Like, he was picking up coffee, and with no, like, pay me back whenever, like, no conversation about it. And then we hired an attorney, and within 2 days we had our son. And so that's why Steph said, I walked into church and all of a sudden was a mom. Because the week before, Steph did not know that there was even a potential for me to become a mom. And the next week I had my son.
I remember you texted me and you're like, I can't tell you what's going on, but I need you to pray on this day at this time. And I'm like, okay. And then I walk into church and I see her holding this beautiful, perfect little specimen of a infant.
So how does that tie into a humble comparison, I guess, is, you know, I self-deprecated in comparison to everyone else. You minimized your my experience. Role, my experiences. I told myself that I couldn't understand what it was like to be a real mom because I wasn't a real mom. I was an adoptive mom. And I wore that label for a long time, like a lot longer than I'm happy to say that I did. And now I don't feel that way, but it's still sensitive though. So like I picked up my son from school and I had to pick up his sweet little friend and bring her home with us for like half hour till our mom could get her. And they were in the back seat and just chitter-chattering. And I'm like, how was your day? You know, all the things. And she's super sweet. And she started asking me a question about how I knew I was pregnant, like how I knew I had a baby in my tummy. And I was like, well, Carter didn't grow in my tummy. And she was like, huh? What? Super confusing for the 5-year-old. And so I tried to, you know, explain it very simply and that, you know, how I do for a kid. And she was like, so you're not his real mom? And I was like,
you absolutely are his real mom.
I did. I said, oh, yes, I am. I said, but he has a first mommy that loved him enough to follow God's plan. Yeah. And she was like, a first mommy? I was like, yeah. He's special enough that he had a first mommy and then me, you know, like a lifelong mommy. And so like it was really sweet in the end, but there are trigger words that you recognize and have to move past. But, you know, it's just that minimization that we do of ourselves that we don't even probably recognize that we're doing. I didn't recognize that I was doing that. And what I didn't recognize I was doing was working double time to prove that I was a real mom. Yeah. I was not thriving. I was struggling. I was
trying to attain a goal that wasn't yours to attain.
Yeah. And I was killing myself in the process. And so, you know, I think when we give way to the things that God says about us, instead of these self-imposed worldly labels, and we don't try to minimize ourselves, there's value. There's value in my story.
Yes.
There's value. Like you have said, like it grew your faith. Yeah. Seeing what happened with my life.
Yeah. I mean, seeing what has happened in your life with how you became a mom cemented my faith probably more than most of the things that had happened to me until that point. And I'm not kidding. Like, I watched God deliver his promises in real time.
Right.
On his plan. And I'm just, I was in awe. Like, I've got chills right now. But when you see that, and to hear you say, I didn't think I was a real mom, and I'm watching this happen. I'm just watching it unfold. And I'm just totally in awe of what he's doing. It kind of broke my heart a little bit.
It broke my own heart.
It was like, no, but you are. Like, God chose you for these kids. Yeah. And it may not have been the way that you thought it would happen or what you thought it would look like. Yeah. But it's his perfect plan, and it continues to just unfold before us.
Girl, does it ever. Yeah. You know, I think another facet of this humble comparison that I know that I have struggled with is in regards to my sexual abuse. You know, I have minimized it that's all I've ever done is minimize my sexual abuse. One, because I felt like I didn't want it to have that much power over my life. But I think two, because in comparison to some other forms of abuse that I have heard people talk about, I'm like, oh yeah, mine was nothing. You know, I have a friend who, you know, we've shared abuse stories, and what she's been through, I just, I can't relate to that on that level. I didn't feel like I could relate to it. And, you know, I wasn't held at knife point. I wasn't raped repeatedly. I didn't experience the things that she went through. And hearing her describe what she went through, my heart like literally broke. And I found myself like, whoa, I know nothing on sexual abuse. I know nothing about what it's like, because I didn't experience it the way she did. You know, I was abused. I absolutely was sexually abused. It happened. It's real. Her abuse is real.
Yeah.
My abuse is real. Yes. They both happened. They're different, but they both happened. And, you know, when I minimize myself, my own experiences, it just gives the enemy power.
Yeah, and it's taking away that connection that others could have to you, because I have been in abusive relationships.
Right.
And while I did not experience the significant injuries that others did, it was very real. And it you know, it still, you know, pops up here and there. And I don't think that pretending like it wasn't
a big
deal is valid, because it did happen to you. And that's what God uses to bring people to each other and to community. Is, you know, he doesn't want us to discard our experiences. They're valid. And those experiences are how people relate to us.
True. I think I got so emotional thinking of my friend. Because
sorry, I don't have a tissue and I don't want to.
No, I'm fine. You know, I can talk about what happened to me freely and help people. And in fact, one of my really, really close friends, just like 2 weeks ago, I said something about being sexually abused when I was young, and she was like, "What? I didn't know that." And it's not something I walk around like, I was abused. But when talking to my friend, you know, when writing this study, and the descriptions that she gave me of what she went through, I was just a wreck. And I went into the conversation. She was looking to me as kind of like a mentor. She wanted some guidance and some she wanted to have some healing from what she went through. And when she started telling me what she's been through, I literally, I felt like in my body, I was like wailing to God, like, whoa, I am grossly underqualified for this conversation, God. Grossly underqualified, because I have no idea how to relate to that level of abuse.
But you were there for her, and you heard her story.
Yeah.
And she was comforted because you could relate.
Yes, because abuse is abuse.
Yes.
And so I think, what we're trying to say here is, when you minimize yourself in an attempt to relate to someone else, that no one benefits.
Right. You're stealing that opportunity that God has given you to relate to someone when you suppress what has happened or minimize what has happened. Those stories are so important to share, because when we feel like we're not alone. I mean, I still remember the moment where things changed for me, and it was reading a book, and I'm gonna say which book it was, but it was Uninvited by Lisa TerKeurst, and I'm reading it.
Lisa TerKeurst.
We love Lisa TerKeurst.
Someone tag her, maybe.
Yeah, right. And I'm reading it, And
I was in that small group.
I know. And it was so powerful. And, you know, I'm sitting there reading it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one that feels this way. And it was just so refreshing to know that somebody was there. And so then we started the small group. I was totally not qualified to lead. I learned more from you guys than I think anything else. But, you know, there were a lot of humble comparisons in that group.
There was. I think as Christians, that's an easy, safe place to go.
You're trying to be humble.
We're told to be humble. Humble
Right.
yourself before the Lord. And so, like, we're literally instructed to be humble. And I think that...
But we take it to an extreme.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Sorry. I jumped the bear.
No, I mean, that's genuinely what we do. We literally, like... I think when you want to be this, like, best Christian that you can be, and you know, you do these things, you want to seek God with all your heart, and so you take things quite literally, but God never told us to minimize who we are and what we've experienced. He says the opposite. Right. Confess with your mouth. I mean, I'm going to say it again, just confess with your mouth, but, like, we are meant to share these experiences with people. We're meant.
I don't want, if somebody seems to have a perfect life, I cannot relate to them. No. I have nothing in common with them.
What could you have in common with?
When somebody is, number one, willing to share what they've been through, and number two, is vulnerable and lets their guard down around someone, I feel that that's a huge privilege to be a part of that, because I am very guarded in a lot of situations. But I try and be open and honest about my struggles and what's going on, because nobody wants to relate to somebody who's like, oh, I got all my stuff together. I don't have it together.
What's the meme? I don't have ducks. There is no row. Oh, there's like something on fire or
something. I have squirrels and they're on a rave or something.
Something like that.
Me.
Yeah.
That is me. And, you know, I think when you tell the story about how you didn't feel like a real mom, or how your sexual abuse paled in comparison to someone else, it was still, both of those events were still something that happened to you. They formed a piece of you, and how you look at yourself. And by sharing that with your community, you're opening yourself up, being vulnerable, and people just really appreciate that. And it's so powerful to know that you are not alone.
Yeah, it is. And we're not alone, and neither are you.
Right.
And so, you know, I think as we close here, like, really, we just, you know, we've now unpacked all the hinges of comparison. And there's so much more, you guys. There's so much more. The stories are so much better in the book. I kind of just want to just like recite them, like have like some sort of like oral dissertation for you, because literally today I was rereading the Adoptive Mom, Real Mom piece, and I was literally in tears, and it's my own story, my own words.
To prove it.
We might post it. I don't know. It was pretty raw.
I loved it.
I was literally like weeping and reading it, and so you know, it's definitely impactful when you see your behavior. It's sometimes challenging to check it, and sometimes challenging to make a correction, but you're not in it alone. We have gone through it. We've done the same things. We struggle just like you. And so, you know, the enemy likes to take all of these things. You know, we've talked about negative self-talk, and you know, that negative self-talk that leads to comparison, and then you know, all these things that come to that you know, that circumvent. No, that where's my word?
Coalesce.
Whatever.
I don't know. Come together.
Sure.
Okay.
No, that's not the word, but it's fine.
Okay.
I don't know. It's fine. It's late. I'm tired.
Yeah. Just for reference, it is like about 10:15.
Yeah, and that's late for me.
And I'm usually in bed by now.
Absolutely. So anyway, we have unpacked the three levels, the three types of comparison, and you know, I think when it comes to a humble comparison, it's just important that you remember that you can sympathize with someone without minimizing any piece of who you are or any bit of your story, because your story matters.
Yes.
What you've been through is important.
Yes.
What was forged in the fire should be on display.
Yep.
And so I want to walk away from here. I'm walk straight to my bed. But I'm going to walk away from here, and I hope you do too, with a kind of this renewed sense of crap. I compare a lot more than I realize I do.
Just the awareness and just to say, okay, so I've acknowledged it. Now let's move past it and let God lead you through it. There's something very powerful about realizing that you compare yourself and then taking it to God and having Him just kind of, you just see things unfold before your very eyes.
You're going to see things differently, I think, after you try to reunite with God and the community that He's placed you within, because you can't do that if you are stuck in these comparative mindsets. And so that's really our whole heart, is just freedom from the comparative narrative. And so now we're going to be moving forward.
Oh my God.
So obviously we've been talking about comparison, and we are still going to continue to do so because it's such an important topic. I think what we're going to be doing for the next few episodes is going to be having some special guests.
Yes, that is our plan.
So if you have a story that you wish to tell, please reach out to us.
Yes.
You can go to our websites,
socials. Everything is in the description below. Make sure you like, comment,
and subscribe. But genuinely, if you have a story to tell and you're interested in being on the Tedder and Weber show, send us an email with the title Tedder and Weber Show, and we will read what you have to say and see if maybe we have the opportunity for you to come on as well. And we look forward to seeing you in episode 6.
Can you believe it?
No.
All right.
Have a good week,
Have
guys.
a wonderful week.
We'll see you later.
Soon.